Welcome to Catch Ya Outdoors. I'm your host, Captain Rob Mody's contact email is catchaoutdoors@gmail.com. The website's catchaoutdoors.com. The Facebook page is Catch Ya Outdoors. I got a couple of books out there. Amazon Kindle. Thanks much to everyone that's purchased one or both. Bridge to Paradise and What I Know About Fishing. Southwest Florida. Now working on number 3. I can't believe I'm getting into working on book number 3, but that's just how it goes. So today's episode is number 31. That's also hard to believe. Title this morning is It Happened in the Florida Keys. Just a note here, you can go to the website, catchoutdoors.com, find a list of all the previous podcasts and listen to them directly right there if you wish. At the bottom of the list, there will be the upcoming podcast unless I change my mind. It's fun being my own boss. It happened in the Florida Keys. I broke it up into basically into 3 segments here. Let me start at the beginning. Janelle and I both had functions that we had to go to in Islamorada. She had a business meeting, and I had an invite from the Bonefish Tarpon Trust to go to the 9th annual Keys dinner and Circle of Honor inductions for the Bonefish Tarpon Trust, also in Islamorada, at the Chica Lodge in Islamorada. And so we both kind of just put this together at the same time and decided that not only should she do her business meeting and we'll do the dinner, but we would also venture down to Marathon and visit the Dolphin Research Center, which I'll get into in a little bit here. And also stay at the Islander Resort now, which used to be the Islander Motel. Wow, times have changed. So Islamorada was our stomping ground for a good 5 or 6 years. I'd say maybe about 5 years from the mid 90s, I guess, 94, 95, all the way up to 2000 when we moved to Fort Myers. It's also where I began my guiding career, more or less. I did my first guides in Key Largo, and I did a couple of them down in Islamorada because we kept a boat there. But what we really did in Islamorada was our getaway spot. So we would hang out. We were working, both of us working in Miami, living in Fort Lauderdale. And so the commute would get to you, the work week would get to you, you're living in the big city, and we would break away every other weekend and go down to Islamorada and fish. We kept a boat there at what used to be the Matacumbe Marina, which is also turned into a very fancy place now. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name off the top of my head. But we stayed at the Islander. So we had this central core thing we sort of did. We had the marina, we had the Islander, and we had the Lorelei across the street. And that was our hangout. We'd go down on a Friday after work. Not usually fish on the Friday, usually just get adjusted, unpack a little bit, get things ready, go fishing all day Saturday, fish part of the day on Sunday, wash the boat down, and then head home. And it was great. We literally learned Florida Bay back then from bottom to top and left to right. And you have to remember that was way before GPSs. So we had a little chart in our lap that showed the markers for the Everglades National Park. What they had done is they had marked specific channels in between all the flats and the islands so that you didn't run aground or damage bottom, even more importantly, stay off the bottom. And so we eventually made our way all the way up to Flamingo in our 17.5-foot skiff, and it was a blast, and we caught lots of fish. So we decided to put this all together because we had these things that were happening, and the first thing was the big event for Bonefish Tarpon Trust, and I can't tell you how much fun I had. Let's put it this way: Stu App was there, Chico Fernandez was there. It was nice to once again talk to Andy Mills. Andy Mills, amazing person. Actually, this is really the crazy part. I finally met Johnny Morris, the owner of Bass Pro Shops, and long story short, very short, I started with Bass Pro off and on in 2006 over in Fort Myers. I was part of the crew that was hired to put the store together. So when I wasn't guiding, which was a lot, I would go over there usually in the evening, and they were bringing in displays and all kinds of stuff for the fishing area. And myself and several other guys and gals unpacked boxes and put the pegs up and started hanging all the lures and all the fishing accessories. It was interesting to do that. It was really cool because I mean, I got to see the layout of the store, and it was and is monstrous. It's a really big Bass Pro Shops. So that was fun. And then I dropped out and did a whole lot more fishing, and then got a call from Chuck Stevens, the now manager, years ago. I don't remember exactly when that happened, to be honest with you. I'm going to guess '07, '08, somewhere in there, maybe as late as '09. But anyway, so I wound up doing some part-time work for them, working on the floor. Um, After I got my cancer diagnosis and got knocked off the boat, I worked quite a bit there as a teacher. I did instruction in the room upstairs, and I eventually wound up. I'll back up a little bit. I wound up being a Mako guide. So I was given a 21 LTS and told to promote, and I did. And I love the boat, by the way. The Mako. You're given a boat, so you go, okay, so I got this boat and I better be nice. Well, I didn't have to be nice. It was nice. The boat was great. I still recommend it. And I had the very first edition. I think I had one of the first 21 LTSs actually. And now I would highly recommend it if you're looking for a bay boat. Oh my goodness, they're real stable, got a nice wide beam on them, float light. I mean, really shallow and light. Just a great boat. I ran mine with a 150 Merc on the back, which was more than enough to push it along and get to the spots I wanted to get to. So anyway, there's Johnny Morris. He shows up at this award because he's being given one of the awards. The induction ceremony was for not only Bass Pro, CEO of Bass Pro, Johnny Morris, but it was also for President H.W. Bush posthumously and Captain George Hommel Jr., also posthumous. George Hommel's probably one of the most well known Keys guides ever. Am I reaching here? No, probably not. I mean, just super loved by everybody. And of course, George H.W. Bush was amazing because he promoted fishing, specifically fly fishing in the Florida Keys. He absolutely loved fishing and would show up there just out of the blue a lot of times, literally. Air Force One. No, they would have to land that up here in Miami, I reckon. But then he would truck his way down there. But anyway, he spent a great deal of time fly fishing. So that's what the evening was all about. So it was nice to walk up to Johnny, introduce myself, and find out what a humble person this guy is. He was great. He asked me a lot of questions about my work and what I had done. We talked quite a bit since I'm in the process of writing a children's fishing book. He is all about fishing kids, and when he found that out, his focus became laser-like, and so we talked quite a bit about the possibilities of the book and what I'm going to do with it and things like that. But in between that, we made lots of new friends. We ran into Jill, old friends, Jill Borski and her husband Tim. Tim is a notorious, I hope he hears this. He's a notorious person in the Keys. He is an artist and draws some of the most, and not draws, paints some of the most extraordinary artwork you've seen. We have quite a few pieces here at the house. He's also known for his fly tying. He does some of the most beautiful flies they're sold locally. They're in Islamorada, but also you can go online and take a look at them and order them, things like that. But so it was fun to run into all these fishing folks, and not only was it fun, it was inspiring. I posted a Facebook with pictures, and I said in there that it was re-inspiring me. It really was. Fishing is always been front and center for me, and I've always enjoyed it more than anything else I pretty much do. Although my interests are all over the place. You talk to most people, and they'll say there's not much he doesn't do. But fishing has always been my center. And it brought me back to that, sitting in that crowd of people. And it was an enormous crowd, by the way. The turnout was fabulous at the Chica Lodge. Um, it 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 made me feel like, man, I started to realize how much of the glue fishing really is among all these people. Like all these people sitting out there were centered there for pretty much and from pretty much one thing, fishing. That was it. It just That's why they were all there. And the stories that were being told in the little groups, you could kind of listen in and hear what was being said, and everyone was talking about the big catch and where they went, most exciting catch. And of course, we're sitting right on the Atlantic Ocean. We're looking out at probably one of the finest fishing grounds in all of America. And they're looking out there going, now I remember we were out at blah blah and we caught this black tuna, and I was over here and we did this, we caught a blue, and then and we were over here and we caught a sail. And the stories were just bubbling out of everybody. So it was really fantastic, and it helped me quite a bit to recenter myself back into my fishing habit, and get myself, uh, now that the winds are dying down, get myself out of my house and get myself out there on the water again. So that's going to be my focus. I can tell you that right now. So my congratulations to the Bush family, also to the Hummel family. Congratulations, and to Johnny Morris. It was a real pleasure meeting you, and you've done more for conservation than most people know. Part two, the Dolphin Research Center. Um, I booked an encounter, as they call it, with for Jonelle for it was her birthday, 25 years ago. To go to the Dolphin Research. You have no idea how much she loves the whole idea of dolphins and being around dolphins. It's her thing. And so for her birthday years ago, I did that. I thought, well, I'd read about it. We'd actually driven by, quite honestly. Again, we fished the Florida Keys a lot, and the Dolphin Research Center is up in Grassy Key, just a little tiny bit north. I think that's all been absorbed by Marathon now and is considered the town of Marathon. But at the time, it was just good old Grassy Key, which is really not much there. A few little motels, a great little marina, the Grassy Key Marina, and the Dolphin Research Center. And so she went, and I sat out and took photographs, and the look on her face, I honestly cannot forget the smiles. It was just, she was just enamored with the whole thing. And so she decided, we're going to go down for this event, and we're only going to be there for a day, so let's extend it into a Friday. And she booked another encounter, but this time for both of us. Let me tell you what, I will say this: swimming around dolphins is absolutely amazing. Let me tell you a little bit about the Dolphin Research Center. This is a different place than your typical let's go swim with the dolphin sort of thing, like an amusement park kind of thing. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Most amusement parks, SeaWorld, things that have dolphins or live creatures like that, do take very, very good care of them. And a lot of them they're not caught wild. I mean, people get this impression that they run out there and they trap these animals and bring it. That's not the case anymore. That's pretty much gone away for almost all of the amusement areas. But what the Dolphin Research Center does that's different is research. They take in misfits, uh, hurt dolphins, if you will, dolphins that have shown up on the beach somewhere and are in distress. They'll rescue, but at the same time, the dolphins are kept there until old age. I mean, they basically live there the rest of their lives if they can't be released for any reason. And since they're there, they are researched, and they draw blood. They learn all about how these animals function. It's amazing, really. Just there's way too many details to go over here, but I learned a lot. I mean, and I've learned a lot over the years as a fishing guide because I was interested in why they do what they do. Sometimes they're a menace, but they're not really a menace. They learn really, really fast. If you're out there fishing and you're in a certain fishing hole and you've been there over and over again, as well as other boaters and other fishermen, the dolphin pretty much learn that they can go there for food, and that's a bad thing. First of all, it's against the law in the state of Florida to hand feed or to actually feed any wildlife in most cases. So what they do is they pretty much go through the life of a dolphin, the differences between dolphins and porpoises, which, by the way, are bottlenose dolphins or bottlenose. I tell people this a zillion times on the boat. They're not a porpoise. That's not what they're called. Porpoises are radically different. They've got a more blunt nose. they're different. The bottlenose dolphin, well, it's called a bottlenose for a reason because that's what it looks like. We also have whales that come through, and knowing the difference, of course, in size is pretty easy. But they talk about the anatomy of a dolphin and how it works, how its pectoral flippers work, the head, the melon they call it, the rostrum, which is the nose itself, the tail is how it steers, how it actually steers itself, because it's a remarkable creature. Um, they they the thing that I noticed on the swim thing was it's very controlled. They have certain signals that they can give the dolphin, and then you can get in the water and you can hold the fin, and they'll take you around the lagoon, which was amazing. They'll come right up to you for a kiss. They'll come right up to you for a high five. It is without a doubt remarkable. If you have children, take them. If you're somewhere in the state of Florida and you're looking at a Keys trip down in the Marathon area, or even in this case, Islamorada is just it's only 20 something miles to head on down to Marathon. If you're in Key West, it's about a 50-mile run up the road from Key West. The Dolphin Research Center is around mile marker 50 something. So, and 0 is Key West. And up at the top around 106, 109, that's the top of Key Largo to kind of give you. They measure everything in the Keys with a mile marker. So anyway, it's about mile marker 50. Take the kids. The thing I noticed, okay, so we were in a group of 8. So on our side, we had myself and Janelle, a woman from Germany, and her son, a little son. He was 5 years old. On the other side was a little girl along with 3 women. So they put you like on a dock. There's a step down that you stand on until it's your turn to get in the water, or the dolphins will just approach you because you're standing in the water. The thing I noticed more than anything else was the affinity for children that the dolphins had. They went through their emotions with us just like they're supposed to. We went, holding on to a fin and got towed around. We did high fives with them. It was, touch them. They would do what they had to do. But when it came to a child, either the little boy with us or the little girl on the other side, you could tell the dolphin were totally focused on that child. It was crazy. They wouldn't leave. They would just, in the case of the adults, when they got bored, the dolphins would just split. They would just go away. The researcher instructor, I'll call her both, would be standing there going, well, they kind of do their own thing here. They're not forced. And that became evident because one of the dolphins that we had was very playful while the other one was a grown adult. Matter of fact, the dolphin, I know she was in her middle 40s, whereas the youngster was way, way younger. They could only guess because that was a rescue. I also learned that there really are 2 types of dolphins, or at least probably more than that, but there are 2 here. There's a spotted dolphin, and I had never seen one before. And so I saw one on Friday. So anyway, the kid focus was amazing. The dolphins would take or leave us, whatever. People. But the kids, man, oh my goodness. So if you got children, by all means go. The facility is really large. They do several different types of sessions. You can do a VIP, you can do a encounter, you can just pay to get in and go view all the dolphins there are many, many lagoons. There's some in the back and some in the front. They've also got seals, and of course the birds all hang out. But check it out. It's really a wonderful place to visit. After our event, we wound up staying in Marathon for the evening. So here's part 3. We went down, and there was a Fairfield there. It's almost across from the airport, just before the airport in Marathon. So it's on the Atlantic side of the road. And obviously totally remodeled. Wow, what a property. The thing was huge. I can recommend it if you're looking for a place to stay in Marathon and you don't mind the motel thing. However, it was set up like a resort. It had double pools. It had large, like big rooms down on the water versus the hotel rooms up by the highway. Really good restaurant, bar, and outside eating. It was amazing. It was truly amazing how large it was. Doesn't look that big from the road, but it extends way back toward the Atlantic Ocean. So we stayed there. And while there, Jonelle had brought up that she really, really, I mean, we both like hiking, and she brought up a state park that we have driven by about a zillion times up in Islamorada that she wanted to see. Actually, it's above Islamorada. It's called the Windley Key Fossil Reef Geological State Park. And so we talked about doing it on the way back. We said, okay, well, we're headed back Saturday morning. Let's get up and get out of here, and we'll drive up the road and stop and take a look at this park. Now, just so you know, there are 10 in the Florida Keys. There are 10 state parks. So, yeah, believe me, I thought maybe five. I had no idea there were 10. Um, Probably the biggest and most well known is the Pennycamp Coral Reef State Park, which is up in Key Largo. I mean, that one, I would have to say to outsiders and people that are listening to this that don't live in the state or only come here on vacation, that's probably one that they've actually heard of. And it's very unusual in that it's a coral reef. It's an underwater coral reef that you can snorkel on and take trips at. It's beautiful, and the park itself is gorgeous too. Swimming, kayaking, boating, all that kind of stuff. Bahia Honda is another one that I think a lot of folks know about. That's down south. Um, the Bahia Honda. Whew, that's a tough one. That's all the way down close to Little Torch Key. Matter of fact, you're closer to Key West than you are to Key Largo at that point. Beautiful park. One of the few that actually has a white sand beach, a natural beach. Again, I always joke about the Keys not having beaches because they really don't. I mean, if you see a beach at a resort in the Florida Keys, just about anywhere, it was brought in, it was put there, or built up, or whatever. But Bahia Honda actually has a natural beach. Curry Hammock State Park, Long Key State Park. We visited that one and took a look. They're restoring the south end of that park so that you'll be able to camp there again. The north end is open. The hurricane, Irma just whacked the Keys, something serious. So a lot of this is being built since Hurricane Irma, or built back since Hurricane Irma. The Dagny Johnson Key Largo Hammock Botanical State Park. Fort Zachary Taylor down in the Key West. That's a state park. So Windley is again up well up the Keys. It's I'm going to say it's like the third one down from the Dagny Johnson, yeah, Pennycamp, yeah. Then the Windley would be the next one down, and it's fascinating because the Windley Key State Park is it's historically interesting. Um, it's actually the quarry. It's a huge quarry that was used by um, Henry Flagler. I was having trouble getting the word out there to build the overseas railroad, which basically extended all the way. Started up in the Palm Beach County area at his resorts and ran all the way down to Key West. And so this was, if you will, a mining hole to bring out coral. And it later became, I'll call it decorative coral, because a lot of homes and houses have beautiful coral fireplaces in them now, and they have coral steps leading up to the house, and it's that polished coral. You look down and you can see tiny little ancient animals in it and shells and things like that, but it's polished. It's usually a kind of a light beigey white colors. You'll know it when you see it. This particular park is open for hiking throughout it, so that you can see three different pits that were, I don't want to say dug because they're not, they're cut to cut the coral out and to use that. Or in the early days, they crushed it for fill so that they could build the land up to put the railroad bed on top of it. Later, it became a more valuable commodity when it came to, it's kind of like granite countertops. That's my impression of it, but that's kind of what it's like. What the coral the extracted coral is turned into something that they call keystone. Florida Keys, obviously, and stone is obvious. So it's very much like a marble or an extremely hard rock, if you will. And the process was really interesting. It starts with a device called a channeling device, and the channeling device is just, you have to picture a I don't know, a giant cutting device that drills straight down into the ground, or in this case, into the coral, and the ancient coral reef, and it cuts blocks out, these enormous blocks. I believe it said they weighed 6 to 7 tons apiece. Um, sometimes as much as 10, depending on the type of cutter that they used. They then lift the stone with a humongous crane and take it over to or a hoist. And they take that over to a turning machine. And it's a wire saw is what it is, a gigantic wire saw. And they cut slices off this thing. Looked to me like to be about maybe 4 inches thick. So it became more manageable. And then they could polish it and distribute it. But the park itself is amazing. If you go to the park and go to the Windley Key Fossil Reef Geological State Park, pull up the pictures online, you can get a fairly good idea of these tools that I'm talking about and how massive this thing was. And is. It still is. I'm going to read a little bit from this particular text that I pulled up has no author, so I apologize. But it's written, it's probably by the Park Service. I'm guessing that's what this is. Windley Key Fossil Reef Geological State Park provides a beautiful exposure of a geological unit known as a Key Largo limestone. Fossil corals and other ancient marine life are preserved in these rocks and record a unique part of Florida's geologic history. Visitors to the park can stand inside a fossil reef, the same rocks that comprise the aquifer of the upper Florida Keys. Fossilized brain coral, limestone, and all this is all mixed together. And it runs from white to light gray in color. It's composed of coral heads and a matrix of sand-sized grains. These grains are made up of the mineral calcite, calcium carbonate, or CaCO3. There are 5 primary coral species found within the Key Largo limestone: star coral, porous coral, and brain corals make up most of it, and then there are others. These corals are approximately 1/3 of all the limestone. In addition to corals, fossil mollusk and how do you say that word? Bryozoans, are found in the Key Largo limestone. The geologic unit was deposited in a shallow marine environment. Older and deeper parts of the Key Largo limestone formed in deeper water, whereas the younger limestone formed in shallow water and warmer water. And that's what represents what's at the park. So you can stand in the quarry cut within an ancient fossil reef. It's kind of mind-blowing when you get right down to it. Something else that the area had that I had they have, I believe there were 60. Don't hold me to that. I'd have to go back and look it up, which I'm not going to do right at this minute. About 60 varieties of plant life because it's a hardwood hammock. So in other words, you have the coral reef itself, but as the water receded, it left behind high ground. So unlike mangrove and things that you see at the lower grounds, the red, black, and white mangrove, you have the higher hardwoods, the mahoganies, and things like that. There were 60 different species of these things, and they have them well marked on the trails. Which leads me to the last part. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm going to say 4 trails, maybe 5 trails throughout the area. None of them are terribly long. You could probably do the whole park in a couple of hours. The trails are well marked. They're well laid out. They're graveled, so they're fairly, we had flip-flops on. We didn't bring our hiking shoes or our hiking clothes, and we were able to walk a good portion of it to see the quarry without a whole lot of problems. So, I would recommend some decent shoes and things like that if you want to do the whole thing. But it was really cool. I wanted to make sure that I cover that in the podcast and encourage people, if you're ever down in the Keys, you're passing through Key Largo, which is what a lot of us do. We buzz through Largo to get down to the fishing grounds in Islamorada and Marathon and Big Pine Key and, of course, eventually Key West. And you blow right by this park on the right-hand side of the road as you're headed south. So be sure to check it out. It's a fantastic location. Windley Key Fossil Reef Geological State Park. Okay, before I go, let's see. And when I was in the radio business, they called these teasers or teases. I can't talk about it yet. Something cool is happening with the podcast. Let's just put it that way. I've got some stuff happening and I'm very excited about it, but I can't talk about it yet. But I wanted to throw a tease out there. Stay tuned. Yeah, stay tuned. So hopefully by the time we roll around to the next week's podcast, I'll have a lot more information for you about some stuff that's happening out there with my podcast. So thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you taking the time to tune in. If you enjoyed this podcast, please tell a friend, share it on social media, leave a review. You can do that, Catch Outdoors, hosted by Anchor and available via Spotify and Apple Podcast. Our Facebook page is Catch Outdoors. Our website is catchoutdoors.com. Until next time, get outdoors and enjoy.